Hello, YouTube. This is a throwback review of Devil's River Bourbon Whiskey. I'm sure a throwback is not the exact right term for this. I like to go back and see, after all those years have gone by, I reviewed this Devil's River a good 4 years ago. So I like to go back. What did I think of it then? Try it again now, after a considerable amount of time has passed, and not so much reinforce my review, but sadly, the older we get, the more experience in our glass that we get, the more interesting it is to go and say, all right, is it the same then versus now? Has anything changed? And instead of just doing a flat out little version of me up in a corner here, mouthing off over what I think, my oh so important, knowledgeable opinion, when really we're just simply doing another review. And if you are curious, look at the other one, see if the two match up. I already have, and I will say, love the hat. And yeah, let's go and compare and see if there's any changes of note that may make this particular bourbon better or worse now than now, however you want to put it. So again, this is Devil's River Bourbon Whiskey, small batch, Texas. According to the label, 90 proof, 750 ml bottle, so that all has remained the same. The label is largely the same. I'm not going to bother with the story. I'm sure that won't change anything. Why bother? But yeah, that is 4 years ago. Nothing has changed. Now, the bourbon field is long in the tooth, long lasting, long years, because to age anything in the bourbon whiskey world, it takes years and years and years and years and years. So why put the effort into changing or updating the label or updating information when really it's the same stuff? It's just sat in a different barrel for a longer time. Plastic cork, wooden top, just like 4 years ago. Now, the glass I'm used 4 years ago is I believe they call it an Irish whiskey glass. At least that's what I was told when I purchased it. Could have been a very clever salesman, or it could be true. Don't know exactly. But in this case, we have a Canadian. Old, worn Canadian, but a Canadian nonetheless. The Glencairn, if you've been watching my series here, has met an untimely end, and sometime in the future will be replaced. But in the meantime, the Canadian has decided to bravely step up and go forth and do these reviews. I believe it was before the Glencairn of old was this Canadian. All right. It is a nice caramel with yellow highlights, just like before. Odors of lemon and vanilla. Very light. You can almost pass over it. But yeah, really, really light. Was it that way before with a light odor or a light nose? Yes. And it has a bite and a burn. Comes up on you late in the hang time, just like before. So, good on them for consistency. Considering that bourbon and, all spirits of all sorts, whether it is, spirits or your fermented libations, tend to change with age. That's why they're like, oh, here's a 12-year, whatever it is, and it will either smooth out or do other tricks. Some noticeable, some not noticeable. In this case, the Devil's River that I have here, much like then, is not the same stuff. It's not aged. So, we have a nice consistency thereof. The other thing is, it is not a sour mash from what I can tell. Usually it's written on the bottle. The bourbon whiskey. Here's our cute little story that may or may not be true. Small batch. Yeah. If it was a sour mash, that would give a clue on its consistency. So what you usually do to make a sour mash whiskey is that you take the drugs in quotes, the very tail end of the last stuff, and put that in the new stuff. So you got remnants of those ingredients plus the yeast. And the hope is that it will contaminate enough of the current batch to be as close as you can get to the last batch when it comes to its ingredients, such as the same yeast, because yeast is a creature, and it changes with temperature rates and food put into it, and all these other scientific farming things can really put a toll on or add with or take away from yeast as well as the other ingredients. Corn, big deal, big deal. If you look at some of the American big bourbon distilleries, they will grow their own corn to keep the consistency as best as possible. And corn will change depending on temperature as well as how much water is in that year. That's why when you happen to hear about wine, and you get wine snobs like, oh, that was a great year. They're talking about how much rain came down, the winds, how much pressure the winds pushed on the vines themselves. They put stress on the grape, so it would hold on better onto the vines, start falling off onto the ground and dying. So that changes the flavors. All these little nuances are extremely important when it comes to wine, as well as your ingredients for your mash bill. So to take stuff from last mash, dump it into, you're trying to influence you can to have a steady and consistent flavor profile all the way through. Not sour mashed. Now, like I said, I'm hot off of listening to me blather on 4 years ago, and I'm pretty much reliving exactly what that was. And that long hang time, light on the palate, nice nose, but very light, pretty much consistent to the letter of 4 years ago. Yeah, it isn't. Once you get past the burn and the bite, and it fades out pretty quick, and maybe because it was a whiskey glass versus a Canadian, i.e., there's more air contact, it's getting it to breathe a lot easier and taking away a lot of the bite and a lot of the fire out of it fairly quickly. Unlike you get with the other glass, it's not bad. It's a nice hot afternoon. Let it sit, let it breathe to get its fangs off, but good sipping whiskey. Now, cool or room temp. This is room temp. If you make it cool, the cool affects your body, which affects the flavor that you're registering from your spirit. And I think you lose a lot of the nuances because it is very soft all the way around once it loses its bite. So keep that in mind. At the taping of that video, you can see me shaking a few times. It must have been awfully cold that day. So I have the feeling that is what helped influence some of the sharpness that I was getting at that time. Where now we're starting to get cooler You know, I got my little flannel on just because, and so it's much more tolerable and temperature wise. So it's making the bourbon here much softer for my particular palate. Now I had the missus try it, and this is one of the few bourbons she and I agree on and she likes. So, gentlemen, if you're out there and, I would say this is a present for the lady in your world, but if you're like, well, we're all sitting here and there's going to be a few women who will be showing up who may or may not be sipping some bourbon, this might be a bourbon to try. It's got enough muscle on it for the dudes, the little, the little light, but it's not strong enough to destroy a woman's palate. So it's a good share to all your pals, boys and girls, for type of a thing. Now, will you get lucky or anything after that? I have no idea. Don't really care. But it is something to think about, something to consider when you have guests. This is a nice all-around pleaser by what I can presume at this particular point in time. Light on the nose, though yummy. Light on the palate, though bitey. Let it air first. And all around, not bad. Give it a try. See what you think. Or better yet, go out, buy it, try it, and let the rest of us in the YouTube community, YouTube experience community, know your thoughts on Devil's River. 4 years ago or now, we'll take either. Facts are facts. But either way, see what you think. Let the rest of us know what you think. Is this worth the money? Is it not worth the money? Why? Always important. Why? More than just, I just think it that way. And again, let us all know. Comments down below, warmly accepted as always. And like I said, I like doing these throwbacks periodically just to see, is this stuff, 4 years ago, 5 years, some of my reviews are over 9 years old. Is it the same thing? Is my palate the same? If I didn't like it then, would I like it now? And actually, the truth of the matter is, I didn't realize I'd already reviewed this. So, keep that under your hat. let us go. Oh, yeah, it's a throwback thing. Just want to make sure, is it with it? Yeah, I'm not, hey, that looks really good. I should try that. And, rats. Oh, well, we'll do it again. We'll do it live. Anyways. But, yeah. Give it a try. See what you think. 4 years. Stable. They're quite good at that. Or at least it seems to be. Until next time, keep on drinking.